I was 11 years old the day my parents left me alone. They didn't cry. They didn't hug me for long. They didn't even look back when the car drove away. All they said was, "Be a good girl. We'll be back soon." And then they were gone. At first I thought it was a joke. I stood at the gate for a long time, holding my small pink bag, waiting for the car to return. I kept thinking maybe they forgot something. Maybe they would come back to get it. But the street stayed quiet. The house behind me felt too big, too empty. I walked inside slowly, closing the door with shaking hands. The sound echoed in the hallway like something had ended. That was the first night I slept alone. No one told me how long they would be gone. No one told me who would take care of me. They just left money on the table and a short note that said, "Food is in the kitchen. Lock the doors at night." I read that note again and again. "Food is in the kitchen. Lock the doors." That was it. That was all I had. I didn't cry right away. I think I didn't understand it yet. I walked around the house, touching things. My mother's chair. My father's shoes near the door. Everything was still there. Except them. That night I didn't eat much. I didn't feel hungry. I just sat on the floor, hugging my knees, staring at the clock on the wall. Every tick felt louder than usual. I waited for morning like it would fix everything. But morning came, and nothing changed. No phone call. No message. Just silence. The next few days felt strange. I tried to act normal. I woke up, made myself bread and tea, and got ready for school. I wore my uniform and tied my hair the way my mother used to do, even though my hands kept slipping. At school, no one knew. I smiled when my friends talked to me. I laughed when they laughed. I acted like everything was fine, but inside I felt like I was disappearing. Every time someone mentioned their parents, something inside me hurt. My mom made this for me. "My dad is picking me up today." I would just nod and stay quiet. When school ended, I walked home alone. The other kids ran to their parents waiting outside the gate. I kept my eyes down and walked faster. Home was no longer a safe place. It was just quiet. At night, the fear started. Every small sound felt big. The wind outside. The creak of the door. Even my own breathing scared me sometimes. I checked the locks again and again. Just like the note said, "Lock the doors." But no one told me how to stop feeling afraid. One night, the power went out. I remember sitting in complete darkness, holding a candle with shaking hands. The flame moved every time I breathed. The shadows on the wall looked like people moving. I wanted to call someone, but I didn't know who. My parents didn't leave any number. No relatives, no neighbors, just me. That was the first time I cried. Not loudly, not like in movies, just quiet tears that didn't stop. I kept asking one question in my mind again and again. Why did they leave me? Days turned into weeks. The money they left started getting less. I tried to save it. I ate less, sometimes just bread and water. I learned how to cook simple things by watching videos on my small phone. I burned food many times. I cut my finger once and cried alone in the kitchen. But slowly, I learned I had to. No one else was coming. School became harder. I started feeling tired all the time. My teacher once asked me, "Are you okay?" I smiled and said yes, because what else could I say? That I was living alone at 11? That my parents forgot me? No one would believe me. Or worse, they would. And then what? So I stayed quiet. That became my habit. Silence. But something started changing inside me. At first I was scared. Then I was sad. But slowly, I started feeling something else. Something colder. I stopped waiting for them. I stopped hoping they would come back soon. Instead, I started thinking, what if they don't come back at all? And that thought didn't break me. It made me stronger. Because if they could leave me like this, then I didn't need them. That was the moment everything changed. I was still just a child, but inside I was growing up too fast, and I made a quiet promise to myself that day. If they ever came back, I wouldn't be the same girl they left behind. The second month felt different. Not easier, just different. I had stopped crying every night. My tears had dried. Like my heart had learned there was no point. I created a routine. Wake up early, clean the house, make simple food, go to school, come back, lock the doors, repeat. It felt like I was living someone else's life. Sometimes I would stand in front of the mirror and look at myself for a long time. My face looked the same, but my eyes didn't. They looked older, colder. One afternoon, something happened that changed everything again. I came home from school and saw a man standing near our gate. He was looking at the house carefully. My heart started beating fast. I froze. He noticed me and smiled. "Is your father home?" he asked. I shook my head quickly. No. When will he come back? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Because I didn't trust him. Because suddenly, I realized something very important. People could tell I was alone. That thought scared me more than anything. From that day, I became more careful. I stopped opening the gate for anyone. If someone knocked, I stayed quiet. If someone asked questions, I gave short answers. I even started leaving a pair of my father's shoes outside, the door to make it look like someone was home. I was learning how to survive, not like a child, like someone who had no choice. At school, my grades started getting better. Not because I was smart, because I had nothing else, no one to talk to, no one to play with. Books became my only company. My teacher noticed. She once said, "You've changed. You've become very serious." I smiled again. That same fake smile. But inside I thought, you have no idea. One evening I found something in my parents' room. A drawer I had never opened before. Inside there were documents, papers, and a passport. My mother's passport. I opened it slowly. There was a stamp, a recent one. They had left the country. My hands started shaking. This wasn't a short trip. This wasn't, "We'll be back soon." They had planned this. They had decided to leave. And they left me behind, not by accident, on purpose. That truth hit harder than anything else. I sat on the floor, holding the passport, feeling something break inside me. But I didn't cry this time. I just stared at it, quietly. That was the moment I stopped being their daughter. Something inside me closed, like a door that would never open again. After that, I stopped waiting completely. I didn't check the gate anymore. I didn't look at the road. I didn't hope. Instead, I started planning. I didn't know exactly what I was planning for, but I knew one thing. If they came back, they wouldn't find the same girl. I started saving money properly. I wrote down every expense. I learned how to manage everything. Bills, food, cleaning, things a child should never have to think about. But I did, because I had to. Months passed. Still no call. Still no message. Nothing. Sometimes I wondered if they were happy. If they were enjoying their life somewhere far away, if they ever thought about me. But then I would stop myself, because those thoughts were dangerous. They made me weak, and I couldn't afford that anymore. One night, sitting alone in the kitchen, I whispered something softly. "I don't need you." It felt strange at first, but then it felt true. And that truth gave me strength, a quiet, steady strength, the kind that doesn't show on the outside, but changes everything inside. By the time I turned 12, I was no longer afraid of being alone. I was afraid of something else, being found out, because if anyone knew the truth, everything could change. And I didn't want change anymore. I had control now, a small, fragile control, but it was mine. One day, my teacher called me after class. "Can I talk to you?" she said gently. My heart started beating fast again. Had she noticed something? Had I made a mistake? She looked at me carefully. "You always come alone." "Who picks you up?" "No one," I said. "Why?" "I live close." That wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the truth either. She sighed. "If there's anything you want to share, you can tell me." I nodded. But I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Because if I started talking, I wouldn't be able to stop. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Life continued like that. Quiet, careful, controlled, until the day everything changed again. It was a normal evening. I was doing my homework when I heard a car stop outside. At first, I ignored it. Cars passed all the time. But then, I heard something I hadn't heard in months. My mother's voice. I froze. My heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. I slowly stood up and walked toward the window. And there they were, my parents, standing outside like nothing had happened. Like they had just gone to the market. Not disappeared for months. My hands started shaking. For a moment, I felt something I thought was gone. Hope. But then, I remembered everything. The nights, the fear, the silence. And that hope disappeared, replaced by something else, something cold. I didn't run to them. I didn't open the door immediately. I just stood there, watching. They knocked. "Open the door," my father said, like he had every right. I walked slowly and unlocked it. When the door opened, my mother smiled. "Oh, you've grown." Like I was a plant they forgot to water, like nothing had happened. I looked at them. Really looked. And I realized something. They didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. That hurt more than anything. "Why didn't you call?" I asked quietly. My mother waved her hand. "We were busy. It was hard." "Busy? Hard?" I almost laughed. But I didn't. Because I understood something very important in that moment. They didn't see what they did as wrong. To them, I was just something they left behind. Something that would stay where they put it. But they were wrong. Very wrong. Because I wasn't that girl anymore. I stepped aside and let them enter. But inside, I made another promise. This time, it wasn't about surviving. It was about something else. They thought they could leave me and come back like nothing happened. They thought I would still be the same. But they had no idea what I had become. They walked into the house like they still owned everything. My father placed his bag on the table. My mother looked around, checking things like she was inspecting a hotel room. "It's clean," she said. Clean. That word stayed in my mind. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Did you miss us?" Not even, "We're sorry." Just clean. I stood near the door, watching them quietly. My father sat down and turned on the TV like it was any normal evening. My mother went into the kitchen and opened the fridge. "Why is there so little food?" she asked. I looked at her. "Because you left me with money that runs out." But I didn't say that. Instead, I answered softly, "I only bought what I needed." She frowned slightly, like I had done something wrong. "You should keep more food in the house." I nodded. Again, silence. That night, we sat together for dinner. The same table. The same plates. But nothing felt the same. They talked about their trip. The places they visited. The food they ate. The people they met. They laughed. Laughed. I sat there eating slowly, listening to stories about their busy life. Not once did they ask me how I survived. Not once did they ask if I was scared. Not once. At some point, my father finally looked at me and said, "You managed well." That was it. No warmth, no pride. Just a simple statement, like I was a task they had left behind. And I completed it. Something inside me tightened. But I didn't react. Because I had learned something important during those months. Emotions are a weakness when you're alone. And I wasn't going to be weak anymore. The next few days were strange. They acted like nothing had happened. My mother started cooking again. My father went back to his routine. It was like they had erased those months completely. But I hadn't. Every corner of the house reminded me. The kitchen where I burned my hands. The living room where I sat in darkness. The bedroom where I cried quietly. All those memories were still there, inside me, and they weren't going anywhere. One evening, my mother said something that changed everything again. "We might travel again next year," she said casually. My hand froze. Again? I looked at her, waiting for her to smile, to say she was joking. But she wasn't. "It's a good opportunity," she continued. "We can't miss it." That word made my chest feel heavy, because I knew the truth. There was no we. There was only them. And then there was me. "Will I come with you?" I asked quietly. She looked surprised. "Of course not. It's not suitable for a child." A child. Now I was a child again. Not when I was alone. Not when I was cooking, cleaning, surviving. Only now, when it was convenient. I nodded slowly, and in that moment, something inside me became very clear. They were going to leave me again. Without guilt, without care, without even thinking twice. And I knew. I wouldn't survive it the same way again. Because this time, I wasn't just a scared girl trying to live. This time, I was ready. Ready to do something they would never expect. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. Every moment, every tear, every silent night. And I made a decision, a quiet one, a careful one. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to beg them to stay. No. I was going to do something much stronger. I was going to show them exactly what it felt like to be left behind. The next morning, I acted normal. Just like they did. I woke up early, made breakfast, and went to school. But inside, everything had changed. I had a plan now. Not a big, loud plan. A quiet one. A smart one. I started observing them closely. Their habits. Their routines. Their conversations. I listened more. Spoke less. My father kept important papers in a locked drawer. But I had already learned how to open it months ago. My mother kept money hidden in different places. But I knew all of them. Because when you live alone, you learn everything. One afternoon when they were out, I went into their room. My hands didn't shake this time. I opened the drawer, took out the documents, passports, tickets, travel plans. They were leaving in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I sat on the bed, holding those papers, feeling calm. Very calm, because now I knew exactly what I had to do. I didn't want to hurt them. Not loudly. Not in a way people could see. I wanted them to feel what I felt. Silence, confusion, emptiness. Over the next few days, I prepared everything carefully. I saved money, packed a small bag, only the things I truly needed. Clothes, some food, my school books, and one small notebook. That notebook was important, because inside it, I wrote everything. Every night I spent alone, every fear, every moment they missed, every time I needed them. And they weren't there. I wrote it all, not with anger, but with truth. Simple, clear truth. The night before their trip, they were busy packing, talking, laughing again. My mother said we should leave early in the morning. My father nodded. Everything is ready. I stood in the doorway watching them. Everything is ready. Yes, everything was ready, but not in the way they thought. That night I waited. I waited until the house became quiet, until they went to sleep. Then I got up, slowly, carefully. I picked up my bag, looked around my room one last time. This room, where I grew up too fast, where I learned what it means to be alone. I didn't feel sad. I felt free. I walked to the table and placed the notebook there, right in the center, where they couldn't miss it. Then I wrote one last line on the first page. Now you know how it feels. I looked at it for a moment. Then I turned off the light, opened the door, and walked out, just like they did. No noise, no goodbye, no looking back. The night air felt colder than I expected. Or maybe it was just me. I stood outside the house for a few seconds, holding my bag tightly, listening to the silence. It was the same silence I had lived in for months. But now it felt different. Before it trapped me, now it was opening something. I closed the gate slowly behind me. No sound, no goodbye. Just like them. For a moment I thought my legs wouldn't move. But then they did. One step, then another. And just like that, I left. I didn't know exactly where I was going. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stay there anymore. I walked through the empty streets, keeping my head down, my heart steady. It was late, but not too late. A few shops were still open. Lights flickered in the distance. I wasn't running. I was choosing. That's what made it different. After some time, I reached a small bus stop. I had seen it many times before, but never paid attention. Now it felt important. I sat down on the cold bench and held my bag close. People came and went. No one noticed me. Just another girl sitting quietly. Just another story no one would ask about. A bus arrived after some time. I didn't even check where it was going. I just stood up and got on. The driver looked at me for a second. "Where are you going?" he asked. I paused. That question felt bigger than it should. Where was I going? I looked down at the money in my hand and said the first place I could afford. He nodded and gave me a ticket. That was it. No questions. No concern. I walked to the back and sat near the window. As the bus started moving, I looked outside. The streets slowly disappeared, and with them, my past. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I didn't. Because something inside me had already finished crying a long time ago. After some time, I took out my notebook. Not the one I left behind. A smaller one. I opened it and wrote just one line. I chose myself. I stared at those words for a while. Then I closed it. The journey felt long, but for the first time, I didn't feel scared of what was coming next, because whatever it was, it couldn't be worse than being left behind. The next morning, I got off the bus in a place I had never been before. Everything felt unfamiliar. New streets, new faces, new sounds. I adjusted my bag and started walking. I didn't have a plan, but I had something stronger, a decision. After walking for a while, I found a small roadside cafe. It looked simple, quiet, safe. I stood outside for a moment, then walked in. An older woman stood behind the counter. She looked at me carefully. "Yes?" she asked. I need work," I said softly. She frowned. "You're too young." I expected that. Everyone says that. But I didn't move. "I can clean, wash dishes, anything." She looked at me for a long moment. Maybe she saw something in my eyes. Not weakness, not fear, something else. Finally, she sighed. "Just for today," she said. "We'll see." I nodded quickly. "Thank you." And just like that, I started again. New place, new life. No parents, no past, just me. The work was hard. My hands hurt. My feet ached. But I didn't complain. Because this pain made sense. It had a reason. Unlike before, days passed, then weeks. I worked, ate, and slept in a small space behind the cafe. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The woman, her name was Amina, didn't ask many questions. But she watched me, carefully. One evening, she said, "You don't act like a child." I didn't answer, because I wasn't one anymore. Not really. Back at the house, my parents woke up that morning expecting a normal day. Their trip. Their plans. Their life. But instead, they found silence. The same silence they had left me in. The notebook was still on the table. Waiting. My mother saw it first. "What's this?" She said. She opened it. And everything changed. Page after page. Truth, not anger. Not shouting. Just simple truth. I was scared that night. I didn't eat because I wanted the money to last. I waited for you every day. I stopped waiting. I learned to live without you. Each line, quiet, but heavy. My father read over her shoulder. At first they didn't speak. Then my mother whispered, "Where is she?" No answer. Because they already knew. Gone. Just like they had done. But this time, they were the ones left behind. Days turned into panic. They called people. Checked everywhere. Asked neighbors, school, nothing. No one knew. Because I never told anyone. I disappeared the same way they did, quietly, completely. And for the first time, they felt it. That empty feeling. That fear. That silence. The same one I lived with. One evening, Amina sat beside me after closing the cafe. "You can stay here," she said quietly. I looked at her. "For as long as you need." Something in my chest moved. Not pain, not sadness. Something softer. I nodded. "Thank you." And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. I never went back. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't need to. They made their choice. And I made mine. Sometimes at night I think about them. Not with anger. Not anymore. Just distance. Because the truth is simple. They left me when I needed them most, and I learned to live without them. That was my revenge. Not loud, not cruel. Just final. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to YH Night Stories for more real and emotional stories like this.